So, give a big, massive round of applause to Fatima Whitbread, please.
So thank you very much for that lovely welcome and for allowing me to share this platform with you today. I'd just like to address the audience and say what a remarkable bunch of people you are. I mean, having listened to your stories and your bravery, to stand up here in front of everybody and share that, I salute you. And Chris, congratulations, this being your 10th anniversary year. Amazing work that's being done, and long may you go on for another 10, 20, 30 years more, and set you know, the platform and the bar really high. So, who is Fatima Whitbread? And for those of you that may already have heard some of this, my apologies, but abandoned as a baby, and some would say left to die. A neighbour heard a baby crying in a flat, hadn't seen anybody coming or going in a couple of days, so she called the police, who then banged the door down, rescued the baby, which was myself, and then I was taken to hospital to recover for the next several months with malnutrition and nappy rash. Pleased to say I got over the nappy rash. Now, during that 7 months in hospital, I was then made a ward of court by Hackney Borough Council, which saw me then incarcerated in the care system for the next 14 years of my life. And back in the 60s, there wasn't really a care system. Our emotional needs were very rarely met. The first children's home I went to was in Hertfordshire in Ware, and there were 25 other children, and it was the Greater London Council that actually were responsible for us. Now, I can always remember growing up in that children's home, we used to play in the front room which faced the car park. And anybody that came into the car park, I'd always say, "Is that my mummy coming to collect me?" It was difficult times for all these young children. You can imagine 25 children, emotionally disturbed, traumatized. It was always that sea of emotional turbulence. Very hard to get your head above the parapet. I can remember the house auntie said to me one morning, "Fatima, tomorrow, be downstairs, 9 o'clock. Your mother's coming to collect you with your social worker, and you'll be moved to a new children's home where the half-brother and sisters are." Now, this was quite a shock as a 5-year-old. A lot to process, may I add. Being that nobody ever told me that I had a mummy, and the fact that I hadn't any visits during Christmas or birthday cards, nothing to indicate that there was family out there. So I was very concerned, didn't sleep very well that night. As you can imagine, I was constantly asking the question, why am I being moved from the only home that I've ever known? The children here are my family, and what's to become of me? But the other side of me as a child was quite eager to find out who is this person that's calling them mum. So 9 o'clock I sat down in the foyer by the door, watching eagerly at the opaque glass window frame. And then I saw this sort of pink cerisi movement, and the matron answered the door when it rang, and a big burly lady came in with black curly hair. And I saw that she had a gold tooth when she was talking to the matron, but never once did she look my way or engage with me. Standing behind her was a slim, linear, mousy-coloured lady with duffel coat on. And she burst in with larger than life, smiling and engaging, and I thought, that must be my mummy, because that is exactly what I wanted. And that's what most children do, gravitate to, security, love and warmth. On the journey down, we didn't have an M25 then. It was all B roads. And if you went round the M25 now to Hertfordshire in Ware, it would take you 45 minutes from the journey down from Ware to Ockenden in Essex. But back then it was a 2-hour journey, and I remember sitting in the car and not a word was spoken to me. So for 2 hours I just looked out the window crying, because I was leaving the only home I knew and what was I considered my family. When we arrived in Ockenden, it was a much smaller residential place, and the house auntie met me on the driveway, and she said, "Fatima, run into the garden," she said, "and play with the other children," she said, "while I sort your mother out," she said, "and your social worker." I sort of walked through the house out to the back garden, and there was, again, a sea of multicultural faces of young children all playing around the climbing frame. And this part, you just imagine, a little 4-year-old and a 5-year-old. The 4-year-old's tugging on the 5-year-old's clothes. "Are you my half-sister?" And the little 5-year-old looks down and says, "Well, maybe." And so the little 4-year-old pulls the 5-year-old to the climbing frame. And as I started to walk up the climbing frame, I felt this thud come across my chest, and someone pulled me to them. And as I looked, it was a biological mum, and she wagged her finger at me saying, "You look after your sister, I cut your throat." And she sort of mimicked her hand across her throat. And unbelievably, you know, those were the first words that I heard my mother, biological mother, I don't ever really call her my mother, speak to me. And I'll never forget that day, because that quite traumatized me in itself. Now, my first 14 years in children's homes, like most children in the care system, was blighted with physical, mental, sexual abuse. We have got 110,000 children in the care system as we speak. 11,000 shortage of foster homes. And at 18, and you may have heard about the care cliff, these young people are pushed out into independent living. No safety net, not being prepared. Their biggest challenge is circumnavigating rent, bills, and employment. They don't have the bank of mum and dad, and as I said, they've not been prepared. So why is it important that we, and my vice chair here, Gina Gardiner, as she is my co-founder, we decided to launch the Fatimas UK campaign, which is to fight for improving the rights for children and young people in the care system. Last year we staged a 2-day summit, which was at the Guildhall in London, and it was quite a historic moment because we brought together the 4 nations for the very first time. We had 110 contributors, 900 stakeholders right across that represented the care system, from housing, homelessness, county lines, probation, virtual heads of schools, social workers. I think you girls have come to the event, Beverly and Chris, and it was just an amazing event of bringing collaborations together. Now, why was that? Because ultimately the care system wasn't really serving the purpose it should. All right, and I'd noticed over the years, I mean, I've worked in the care system quite under the radar. So why launch Fatimas UK campaign is to be able to be independent, not have to have my wings clipped, to be able to ask those pressing questions and to hold people to account. Because ultimately, you know, when there is a lot of good work out there, but they work in silos. So the summit was to bring together that collaboration, to eradicate the silos and bring joined up thinking, but also to amplify children's voices where decisions are made, where ministers that came, and those people that, you know, work in the care system, you know, it's vitally important, you know, shared good practice and knowledge. So what do we do now? I mean, I know that we haven't got much time, Chris. What I'd like to say is that there's more to my story. If you want to go online, you can buy the book Survivor. And also I wrote a children's book called My Bright Shining Star. And in the book, it was about a young Fatima and Auntie Ray. I always used to call Auntie Ray the tickle monster, because in the second children's home, Auntie Ray was a 45-hour lady. And she was and I always say, it only takes one person to make a difference in a child's life. And that connection's vital. It can make a huge impact on a child's life. Auntie Ray was that person, and I called her the tickle monster. And why was that? Because as a little kid, when I knew Auntie Ray was coming in on duty, I used to hide under the bed sheets, and she would leave me to the last one to wake up, and she'd tickle me. And that's when I knew my day had started correctly. She got us, we felt emotionally, held and loved, and it was just an amazing feeling to know that there was somebody there for us. So you can read all about the book, which is gifted in as much that the proceeds go to Fatima's UK campaign to help children and young people in the Power of Art, Sports and Technology programs that we do, because it's all about inclusion. It's all about having that sense of belonging within their community, building life skills and finding that role model. It's really key. Children often find themselves discriminated against when they're in the care system. And I've always said they're in the care system through no fault of their own. And that's so important to remember that. You know, and it's a tough one for me, because I've always said that trauma is with our young people is because trauma is built because they don't have what they call that unconditional love. That one person that's going to show them that support and care, and they feel seen, heard and valued. And that's so important, because I believe it's every child's birthright to have that love and security, but it doesn't happen, unfortunately. And here's the thing, we all experience trauma. None of us are excluded just by being a human being. The one thing, there's no hierarchy where trauma is concerned, this is what I'm trying to say, but the one thing we do have the responsibility for is when we reach a certain age, is to do the healing work. The healing work's really important. That is what will equip you, having the right tools in the box, when you are triggered with future events that can trigger past events. How to deal with that is so important when you go through your life. Primary care experiences or generational experiences that are handed down, they don't just disappear. You have to work through them. And yet that's what I call the healing work. And that's a daily base, that's a day-to-day thing. I do that constantly. And my vice chair will tell you, I can be a bit of a handful sometimes, but I've worked on myself throughout, and I will do to the end of my days, because I believe you show up better for yourself, your true authentic self, and for others, to be able to help others too. So what we do now, if you don't mind me just saying, is that we were quite keen, Gina and I, not to have had a summit where it was just another talking shop. Everybody came along, they had a good time, enjoyed it. The second thing, look, if you want to go on our website, fatimascampaign.com, on the website, you'll see all the interviews. We recorded everything from the summit. All the interviews, the panels, the breakout rooms. You'll be able to see all the videos on our website from all those key stakeholders. It was an amazing event, if I do say so myself. What we're doing now is building upon that success in creating what we call action hubs, because as an 18-year-old, when they go out into dependent living, as I said, they're only given £2,000, one point of contact twice, and it's "Tara, have a nice life." Now, if you've got children, ask yourself, would you push them out at 18? Would you leave them independent to get on with it with only £2,000? The answer's no, isn't it? We have to aspire for better for our young people, because how we shape who and what they become will decipher what society ends up. And if we are trying to help these young people live a holistic, independent, sustainable life, is what we're doing with our hubs, it will help them to break that cycle, so when they have a family of their own, there isn't a systemic problem, which there is currently. I go to a lot of prisons and I talk to a lot of people in the prison system. Earlier this year, I went to Downview Prison and I spoke to 150 women in that prison, which were in there because the care system had failed them. But the worst problem of all was the fact that their children are now in the care system. So this is why we have to aspire to do better for them, and try and put them on what I call an unstoppable human path to reaching their goals, living their dreams. So when they do have a family of their own, they can well and truly break that cycle. So Gina, is it all right if I just ask you just quickly to say something? Gina's my vice chair, and I'd like, so it's never just one person, as Chris will tell you. Just very quickly, just explain how we work with our hubs.
First and foremost, I've done a lot of work with people who've survived abuse, familial abuse. I have to say, what you're doing is just amazing.
Amazing, yeah.
So huge congratulations. We've got 3 initiatives going on, and if you're in the room and any of these resonate with you, please contact us. The first is an action hub. The 3 principles: you have to be an action taker, it has to support and help and improve the life chances of people in care or caregivers, and you have to be prepared to share. We've got action hubs now that are already operating around a whole range of things: employment, health, lots around education, and so much more, sport, arts and technology. We don't ask you to change what you're doing, we ask you to engage with us. We're a facilitator, we don't provide those services, but we're also amazing connectors. Fatima, I call her Aladdin. She knocks on doors and people open them. You and I would go to the door and we'd say, where are you? So if you're interested, please come and find out. If you're involved with local authorities, we have now got 4 local authorities who have joined us to become wraparound local authorities, and we're in the process of creating a charter where local authorities at 3 different levels, starter level, bronze and so on, will support young people leaving care in a joined up way. And we want to engage other local authorities to join with us in terms of creating it. It's rather like the Armed Forces Covenant. And the third area is looking for local authorities who are acting as corporate parents, who are already doing a good job and who want to engage and look at how it can be even better. So ultimately, as with what you're doing, it isn't a one-person job. It is how we collectively come together that is going to make the difference. And whether you're talking about surviving abuse, and kids in care have all had trauma and abuse of one sort or another, or whether you are looking at how can we have that voice that Simon was talking about, how easy it is to think that you're doing the right thing, but if you don't ask and don't give people the opportunity to speak, you can go off half-cocked and give them something that you think is great, which doesn't.
Doesn't, yeah.
So congratulations, keep up the good work.
Yeah.
Thank you.